by the time you came into this case, that rental vehicle, I mean, it had been at this point, what, a year since the incident? We're talking January 2016 is when you're in this case?
Yes, I obtained the records from Hertz in 2016. It would have been over a year. It would have been around April of 2016 when I obtained the records from Hertz.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you about some of the things you did not do. Okay.
Okay.
You referenced earlier there were a lot of numbers being phone numbers being kind of, I don't want to say thrown at you, but put in front of you in terms of, well, you were able to get information on this phone number and that phone number, the frequency of communication. You remember those questions?
I do.
And you did in fact have the ability to procure phone records by way of either subpoena or search warrant or court order.
That's correct.
Okay. You were able to get a lot of different phone numbers on people that you thought or individuals you thought might have been of some interest in the case. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. You also, when you request those phone records, you have the ability to request cell site or cell tower information, correct?
That's correct.
Now, and I know you're not an expert, but you are familiar with utilizing, maybe with an expert, cell site and cell tower information to try and make a determination as to where someone might have, or where a phone might have been at a particular time. True?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with plotting cell phone records. I'm not like an FBI CAS team member or anything like that, but I can hold my own.
Right. So having listened to Kenneth Copeland's statements, and you did that, all right? Mm-hmm. Having listened to his statements, one of the things that you would have wanted to do, I presume, I'm asking, is try and determine whether or not you could corroborate certain information in his statement. Is that about right?
That's about right.
All right. He gave, like we said, at least one 9-hour statement, and he gave a lot of statements. There was a lot to listen to from Kenneth Copeland.
Yes.
Right. And he gave information that you would have used to follow up in your investigation.
That's correct.
Right. The name Zachary and Garlington came up in your investigation. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. There was this reference in listening to Kenneth Copeland's statements. There was this reference to a conversation, phone calls that he would have had with Garlington, right?
That's correct.
And it would have been some interest to you to figure out whether or not what Kenneth Copeland was saying, not just about that, but everything was corroboratable, was true.
Yes.
Right? Or whether Kenneth Copeland was lying to y'all, lying to the detectives, not y'all, because he had already been interviewed, right?
Right, that's right.
Because you considered him to be a pivotal witness in the case.
Yes.
Right? And some of the things that he said you would have considered to be pivotal things that you wanted to follow up on, right?
Yes.
And if you have a witness, just like Spencer Wright, for example, if you have a witness who you think has pivotal information, but that witness is proven to be a liar, that's something that you want to know in regards to the investigation. True?
That's true.
And one of the things you could have done in regards to Kenneth Copeland and any statements he said, phone calls he said he may have had with someone named Zachary and Garlington, is you could have gotten Garlington's phone records to determine whether or not those communications took place, right?
That is correct.
And also where Mr. Garlington was to see whether that comports with what Kenneth Copeland said, right?
That is correct.
Now, you got Kenneth Copeland's information, his phone information, right?
I did.
You got his location, so you knew, or at least the phone, where that phone was at certain times on the night of January 10th, 2015, right?
Well, to be specific, what you see with tower data is the tower and the side of the tower that the phone utilized. That can be a pretty large area. In a city with a lot of cell phone towers everywhere, you get a little bit of a better idea, but I just want to make sure that we're clear that it's not the exact location of the phone.
Sure. Not the exact, you can't pinpoint within feet or maybe not even within a block, but it was important enough to you to get that information on Kenneth Copeland on the phone that you thought was being used by Kenneth Copeland, right?
Yes.
Now, you did reach out to get information on Garlington's phone, or what you thought was Garlington's phone, right?
There was a number that I thought may have been Garlington's number.
Sure.
And I believe I referenced that in my report. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was maybe a Sprint number, or maybe I can't remember exactly. It wasn't in his name. I was never the short answer to your question is I was never able to get tower data for Demeke and Garlington.
Well, it's not that you weren't able to get tower data. You requested the data for that phone number and specifically requested it without the tower usage logs. Isn't that right?
Yes. So there was a number that was in Kenneth Copeland's records, came back, I want to say, to a female. Now, and I remember, and this is, I'm thinking, and unless there's something that can refresh my recollection, from what I remember, I couldn't prove. It's one thing to get call logs are very easy to get. You don't need probable cause for those. But to get location data, you need probable cause. And I remember, from what I recall, I didn't think that I had probable cause to get tower location data for this number. Usually I'll try to do something like, there's a number of things. Like if I find a jail call to the number and I hear the voice that picks up, I say, oh, well, that corroborates that number is in fact that person's number. Or if somebody cites it on their Instagram page and says, call me on this number, that's going to get me to probable cause that that's that number. But if it's just that it's in temporal proximity. And I think there was another issue with the retention period of the number. I don't, all I know is I didn't think I had probable cause. I never got probable cause to get the tower records.
Let's work backwards a little bit, right? Let's start with this. When you sent out the request for the records that you thought was a number to Demeke and Garlington.
Yes. You
requested those records specifically without tower usage logs, right?
I did.
Okay. Now, you had previously requested records for what you thought was Kenneth Copeland's phone number with the tower usage logs, right?
I don't know that it was me that did that. It may have been investigator or Detective Dennis that did that.
Right. But one thing that you knew, I mean, you honed in on the fact that there was supposedly this call between Kenneth Copeland and Demeke and Garlington, and they were supposed to be at a specific place on the night of January 10th, 2015. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Right. And so you had listened to Kenneth Copeland's statements, and you knew from Copeland's statements that he made reference to a Garlington, who was an important witness to you, right?
It was.
Right. You knew that Copeland had made reference in his hours of statements about this conversation and the location of Garlington, who was an important witness. You knew that.
That's right.
Right. And so you still didn't think that that was enough for you to go ahead and try to verify whether Kenneth Copeland was lying through his teeth or not by getting Garlington's tower usage logs.
I will say one other thing.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
All right, Mrs. Sprinkel, so I'll just ask the question just very simply. Bottom line is, I am correct when I say that you requested the information on Mr. Garlington's phone, but you requested those without the tower usage logs. Is that true?
That's right.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you something about a picture that we looked at a little bit earlier. All right. Remember the picture that the state put up? I think it was States 510 and DS 44. You have those in front of you?
I do.
Do you mind if I step up and take a quick look at them? May I, Judge? All right. May I, Ms. Sprinkle?
There you go.
I wasn't clear earlier, so I want to see if I can clear this up. You've been to what's been termed the Sky House, right?
That's correct.
As in, you have been there to the building, right?
That's correct.
Have you been inside to the individual units in there?
I have not.
So you've not stood inside of the Sky House in front of a window and looked out the window to observe what the skyline that you can see or what the view is you can see from a particular window, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so those pictures that you saw earlier, You've seen the pictures before, right?
I have.
But you have not stood in the vantage point of the person in that picture to be able to say, this is someone looking out the window of the Sky House.
That's right. I have not.
Now, although the bulk of the work that you did was in regards to the January 10, 2015 shooting of Donovan Thomas. Am I correct about that?
That is correct.
Okay. You were asked a couple of questions about some other matters. Specifically, you were asked some questions about this Lil Wayne tour bus shooting business. Is that right?
That's right.
Right. Would I be correct in saying that what you know about that is information that you received from Detective Raisi and any other detectives or investigators involved in the case?
Yes, Detective Raissi, David Raisi. He, last I heard, was with the ATF.
Okay. You spoke to him and you got some information from him, correct?
I did.
You were not intimately involved in any investigation of that portion at all. True?
That's true.
You were asked a question earlier, though, about a phone number. The prosecutor asked you about a 770-881-1440 phone number. Remember that?
I do.
Okay. That is a phone number that you looked at while you were looking at this whole Lil Wayne tour bus business. True?
I don't know if that, I don't know if that number caught my attention because of the Lil Wayne tour bus incident.
Do you know who Clifford Harris is?
Yes.
T.I.?
Yes.
Okay. That's his number, ain't it?
Yes, that's what I found. Okay. I concluded, yes.
And if I heard you correctly, that's a phone call to that number that may have been picked up, may not have been picked up, but ultimately doesn't have any significance to you in regards to this investigation. True?
I mean, just that it was an incoming call at 7:30 p.m. on January 10th, 2015.
That's it.
That's right.
Let me jump back a little bit, if you don't mind, to the whole Sky House business. One of the things you were asked was whether or not there is controlled access at the Sky House. You remember that question?
I do.
Your answer ultimately was yes, right?
That's correct.
But the truth is, you referenced that there was what you believe to be a call box at that location.
That's right. There was a call box, a number that I identified. I just can't recall. There's obviously going to be controlled access.
But why do you say obviously?
Well, I mean, to get into the individual units, and there was a call box for which I identified a number. I just don't recall where the controlled access point was. Like, do you need one to get into the parking garage? Do you need one to get into the building? I just don't remember. From my personally going out there, I just don't remember.
Sure, and that's really what I want you to testify to, your personal knowledge. Mm-hmm. The truth is, you don't have any recollection as to whether or not there's any particular way to get in a gate, or whether there is a gate that you have to get buzzed in or anything like that. You don't know that, do you?
That I don't remember. I don't know if it's like the building, the door to the lobby was open, and then from there, or you had to get buzzed up. I just don't remember.
Okay, so the truth is, in talking about the Sky House and the access to the Sky House, you're really not in a position to tell this jury that, yes, there's a controlled access and there's a certain way to get in there. You just don't know.
I just don't remember. Like I said, I'm sure I know that there was some sort of control. I just don't know if it started at like the lobby door or in the parking garage. I just don't know.
Okay. Do you recall, you had an opportunity to listen to statements by various individuals in this case. Now I'm going to hone in on Quindarius Zachary. You had a chance to listen to his statement?
I did.
Okay. And you're aware that Detective Dennis had a conversation with Quindarius Zachary, is that right?
He and I both, well, there were a couple of them. During one of them, he and I both did.
You sat in, right, on one, but that's not what I'm getting at. I'm asking whether or not you had an opportunity to listen to any statements between Mr. Zachary and Dennis prior to your involvement in the case.
Yes.
Okay.